Welcome back. You're listening to Houston Real Estate Radio. I'm your host, Shannon Register, and this week, this segment, we're going to be talking about the top 10 pitfalls that all landlords face. There are a lot of people right now purchasing investment homes and renting them out themselves, and I see a lot of problems going on with this, and Bryan Chavis wrote a book. It's called Buy It, Rent It, Profit. Make money as a landlord in any real estate market. And I love the title because we are in a very strange real estate market here in Texas right now, here in Houston, in the Houston market. But I want to talk about his top 10 list for the top 10 pitfalls all landlords face because it's interesting. These are things that I see every day. So I really think we need to talk about them, Bryan.
Great. I'm here to do that.
All right. So your book is the number 10 worldwide bestseller, according to Amazon. That's exciting news.
Yes, ma'am. It is. We're really excited about that.
All right, Bryan, one of the things you have on the list here, not continuing to educate yourself. Tell us about that.
Well, I think education is key. I mean, to any business, you always have to stay ahead of the curve. And
don't you think some people go into landlording and they don't even know the rules about it? They don't even know what's expected of them as a landlord?
It's sad to say. I travel all over the nation giving lectures and training. So, I mean, I think I'd feel comfortable to say that, 85 to 90% of individuals lack the knowledge and skill level to really be successful. They're basically winging it. And, that not only impacts them, but it impacts the tenant and it impacts the neighborhoods in which the rental property exists. So it has a lot of negative impacts, not just to the investor or the landlord, but to tenants and neighborhoods alike.
All right, number 2 is not following the proper landlord systems. What systems are we talking about?
Well, 5 keys to property management. And being a landlord is, and I did not mention it in the book. I was kind of holding out a little bit for the second book to throw this at the readers. But acquisition, implementation, stabilization, growth, and then exit strategy. Those are the 5 phases of property management. And implementation is implementing the proper systems to run the business.
And it does have to be run like a business. Let's talk about that as number 3, not treating landlording as a business, because it is a business,
correct.
Right? Even if you only have one property, you have to treat it as a business.
You have to. One property can get you sued. I mean, if you own 1,000, you still get sued with that one property. So, yes, it must run like a business.
Not enforcing your rules and regulations. Number 4, not enforcing your rules and regulations. What kind of rules and regulations are we talking about?
Well, most tenants will mistake your kindness for weakness and take advantage of it. Most of them know the laws.
Well said.
Better than the property manager or landlord themselves. So, without rules, regulations, who's to govern the investment, the property. You don't want to be taken advantage. So you want the rules of the game laid out and everyone to understand the rules of the game, and they must be enforced for you to be taken seriously in this business.
All right, number 5, not properly maintaining your property. That's a big one. I mean, if you're going to be a landlord, you got to take care of the property.
Absolutely. Most landlords, I can't for the life of me understand why most individuals, I can to an extent when it comes to slumlording. You're pulling money out. It's an ATM machine, and I can understand the mentality. I do not agree with the mentality, of course, but with that being said, these are your investments, and you have to take care of them. It's no different than anything you own. You do not. You want to pull the value out. You're buying this on what we call a cash-on-cash basis or an income approach. So, you want to take care of the investment and do what you can do to position it to increase the value over time.
All right, we're talking about the top 10 pitfalls that all landlords face. We're talking with Bryan Chavis. He has a book out. It's called Buy It, Rent It, Profit. Check it out. We're on number 5, not using a well-written lease. We have here in Texas, we have promulgated leases that realtors use. If you're not going to use a realtor and not going to be able if you don't use a realtor, you can't use that lease. So if you're not going to go through a realtor, what do you suggest they use?
Well, that's a difficult question. Number one, I would have to look at the investment itself. But a good solid lease has very basics that any contract has. It spells out the rules. It spells out, what's expected of both landlord and tenant. There's very basics, but necessities to a lease contract. You see a lot of mistakes with single-family homes. Who's responsible for what? Who's responsible for the lawn? Who's responsible for pest control? So on and so forth. With apartment complexes, it's pretty much a given that the property manager or owner is responsible. With single-family homes, it's not. So, who's responsible for maintaining the pool? What if something happens? Who's responsible? If someone drowns in the pool, who's going to be blamed? How is it, there's a lot of various different issues that people do not take in consideration that must be spelled out in the lease contract.
All right, number 7, not conducting a market survey every 1 to 3 months. That's pretty regularly. Every 1 to 3 months is pretty regularly.
Well, markets have equilibriums, and you have to keep your finger on the pulse. And when people look at it like, hey, that's a lot of work. Well, rents generate. Market surveys give you an idea of rents. Well, what makes up 99.9% of net operating income? Rent. How do individuals determine value? Cap rates, cash on cash returns. Net operating income appears in all of those formulas. Net operating income is 99.9% comprised of rent. So if you don't really understand rent, then how are you to understand value?
Sure.
So, one would, if you really want to keep your hand or finger on the pulse of what's going on, the values of your asset, then I would say yes. You need to be able to factor in trends.
All right.
And future.
We're talking about the top 10 pitfalls that all landlords face. If you are a landlord, you need to listen to these. They are so important. If you missed any of today's show, go to our website at HoustonRealEstateRadio.com, and you can see the video and catch all 10 of these. We are on number 8, not building the proper team and network infrastructure. Most landlords think they can do it by themselves. They don't need anybody else.
Yeah, and that's half the problem. If you're the smartest person on your team, then your team is in trouble.
Yes.
So, if I was the smartest person on my team, then, there's no way I would have been as successful as I am. So that's number one, is the gauge. If you're controlling and you're doing everything. I never got involved in this business to be working a full-time job. I would have just stayed working a 9 to 5. So at the end of the day, people to get out of a full-time job to jump right into a business as an entrepreneur to work more than 17, 18 hours, and their reply is, well, it's mine. Yes and no, and yes, it's yours, and you're the controller of your own fate. But if you work 17 hours a day, it's really what you're working. Are you working smart? Or are you working hard?
Right.
To me, I never got involved with this industry or this business to work 17 hours. As you can, I'm doing my interview here on the golf course. This is what I prefer to do. This is what I envisioned myself doing, was building passive income so I can do things that I wanted to do, which is work on my horrible golf game. So,
all right. Well, number 9.
At the end of the day, it's
Number 9 is
it's what you want.
Not following fair housing laws, and that one is a big one. You've got to follow fair housing laws. I mean, that's just, you can't get around that. And number 10 is not understanding how to screen tenants. I think number 10, that is the most important thing. You've got to screen those tenants up front before they get in your property, because you could be stuck with them in that property for 12 months of just a disaster waiting to happen. I mean, you've got to have good tenants.
Correct, you do, and at the end of the day, again, this falls back on protecting your asset.
That's right. That's right.
And what are you doing, as well as liability? A lot of people don't look at the liability portion of it. I mean, who are you moving in?
Right.
Are you moving
It's
in
important.
a sex offender? Are you moving in a criminal?
Yeah.
And something happens in the property. I mean, everyone's going to point the finger at you.
Pre-screening is
definitely the insurance company.
Yeah, pre-screening is definitely number 1 on my list. All right, Bryan Chavis, thank you for joining us here on Houston Real Estate Radio. You just listened to the top 10 pitfalls all landlords face, and you can catch them all if you read the book, Buy It, Rent It, Profit. You can go to Amazon.com and order it today. Buy It, Rent It, Profit. We'll be right back here on Houston Real Estate Estate Radio.